The United States has just hit the UK with a devastating 25% tariff on British steel and aluminum exports, leaving Prime Minister Keir Starmer scrambling for answers. Just a few months ago, he strutted through Washington with a confident smile after meeting Donald Trump, acting as if he'd secured a golden ticket for Britain. Now, that illusion has shattered. All the handshakes, photo ops, and backroom talks have amounted to nothing. Britain stands alone, sidelined, while the rest of Europe rallies together against Trump's trade offensive. Remember when Starmer returned from Washington, basking in the glow of his so-called diplomatic triumph? He and his team spun a tale of a special connection with Trump, a bond that would supposedly shield the UK from harsh trade policies. But reality has delivered a harsh wake-up call. The tariffs imposed on British steel and aluminum are no different from those slapped on other nations. No exemptions, no grace period, just cold, hard evidence that Britain isn't getting any special treatment. The most humiliating moment came when a reporter asked Trump if Starmer had convinced him to spare the UK from tariffs. Trump smirked and simply said, "He tried," as the press corps erupted in laughter. That wasn't just an answer, it was a public dressing down. Any illusions of a partnership were shattered in that moment. Trump played the game, and Starmer got played. To make matters worse, Trump even mocked Starmer's British accent, sarcastically suggesting he would have won the presidency 20 years ago if he'd spoken like that. It wasn't flattery, it was pure condescension. Back home, Starmer's team had been confidently telling the media that their leader's charm would keep Britain safe from Trump's economic aggression. But that narrative has crumbled. The UK received no concessions, no delay in tariffs, nothing. So why did Starmer believe he was special? Simple. He overestimated his influence on the world stage. A former lawyer who thinks sharp arguments and polished speeches are enough to win over world leaders. But Trump isn't swayed by words, he's swayed by power, leverage, and bold action, none of which Starmer has demonstrated. While Starmer floundered, the European Union wasted no time assembling a powerful response. The EU announced a $26 billion countermeasure targeting American goods, bourbon, motorbikes, boats, all aimed at hitting Trump's political base where it hurts. It was a calculated move, a show of strength. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen made it clear, the EU wouldn't be bullied. Canada followed suit with a $29.8 billion retaliation package, with Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc stating bluntly that this was a dollar-for-dollar response. No hesitation, no political doublespeak, just action. And what did Britain do? Nothing. Starmer's government released vague statements about keeping all options on the table, code for having no plan at all. European officials are reportedly laughing at Britain's weak stance behind closed doors. One senior EU diplomat even described the UK's approach as surrendering before the battle even starts. While the EU and Canada push back, Starmer clings to the naive hope that Trump might have a change of heart. But Trump has already made it clear, he holds all the cards, and he's not afraid to play them. The consequences for the UK's steel industry are immediate and devastating. The sector exports around 9% of its total production to the US, and those orders are now vanishing. Contracts are being cancelled, workers in industrial towns like Port Talbot are staring down mass job losses, and the government has offered nothing but empty reassurances. Gareth Stace, Director General of UK Steel, has confirmed that the damage is already underway. Meanwhile, trade unions like Unite are demanding urgent action, but their calls are falling on deaf ears. Compare this to the EU's strategic counterattack. Their response wasn't just quick, it was methodical. The $26 billion in retaliatory tariffs are being implemented in two phases, starting April 1, 2025, and fully enforced by April 13, 2025. This allows the EU to keep pressure on the US while maintaining room for negotiation. It's a masterclass in strategic diplomacy, something Starmer's government clearly lacks. Britain's steel producers have been left exposed, while the EU is protecting its industries with calculated precision. Trump is punishing Britain more severely because he sees Starmer's government as weak, isolated, and unwilling to fight back. And the humiliation didn't stop with Washington. On March 10, with just 48 hours before the tariffs took effect, Starmer made a desperate, last-minute phone call to the White House. According to insiders, the call was an absolute disaster. Trump dominated the conversation, barely acknowledging Starmer's concerns, instead using the call to talk about himself and his own agenda. Starmer, the leader of the United Kingdom, couldn't even get a word in. And yet, Downing Street had the audacity to describe the conversation as productive. It's like calling the Titanic's sinking a minor setback. When Starmer faced Parliament on March 12, he had nothing but tired, recycled phrases to offer. All options are on the table, we're taking a pragmatic approach, meaningless words that fooled no one. Opposition leaders pounced. Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey called out the UK's weak response, demanding immediate action. Unite General Secretary Sharon Graham issued a public statement urging the government to stop talking and actually do something, before more jobs are lost. The economic fallout is staggering. The UK steel industry makes up just 0.1% of the economy, but that's still billions of dollars in exports at stake. Analysts warn that these tariffs could cost Britain $2.2 billion in lost US trade, triggering job losses across industrial regions. This isn't a crisis that will hit months from now, it's happening now. For steelworkers in places like Port Talbot, these tariffs could mean the difference between keeping their jobs and losing everything. This entire disaster exposes a fundamental flaw in Starmer's leadership. He believed charm and diplomacy would protect British interests. He was catastrophically wrong. Trump doesn't respect weakness, he exploits it. And right now, he's exploiting Starmer's lack of strategy without fear of consequences. The pattern is clear. The EU showed strength and unity. Starmer showed indecision and isolation. Canada hit back dollar for dollar. Starmer responded with empty words. The question now is simple. How much more must British workers and industries suffer before Starmer wakes up? The EU stands united. Canada has taken decisive action. Britain is left isolated, with Starmer's fantasy of a special relationship with Trump brutally exposed. The UK steel industry isn't just an economic sector, it's the backbone of countless communities and a symbol of Britain's industrial heritage. If Starmer doesn't act now, the consequences will be felt for generations. The time for empty words is over. Britain needs a leader who can stand up to Trump, protect British industry, and fight back. Right now, it's clear. That leader is not Keir Starmer. The political landscape between the United States and the United Kingdom took an unexpected and dramatic turn when reports surfaced about what insiders are now calling the "call from hell," a conversation between UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and a top-ranking official in Washington that has sent shockwaves through the corridors of power. This revelation has ignited a firestorm of controversy, with American politicians and citizens alike expressing outrage, disbelief, and deep concern over what transpired during this now infamous exchange. At the heart of the controversy is the nature of the conversation itself. While official statements remain vague, leaks from both UK and US insiders suggest that Starmer may have made remarks or commitments that Washington found either unacceptable or outright offensive. The speculation is running wild, but one thing is clear: this wasn't just a routine diplomatic call. Something within the discussion has rocked US-UK relations, and the aftermath is proving to be anything but smooth. One of the key points of contention appears to be related to foreign policy. Some sources claim that Starmer took a stance on a critical global issue that Washington perceives as either a betrayal or an alarming shift away from previous UK commitments. Others suggest that the discussion touched upon trade policies, military cooperation, or even classified intelligence sharing, any of which could explain the strong reaction coming from Washington. The sheer level of secrecy surrounding the details of the call only adds to the mystery, fueling speculation and raising serious questions about the future of the so-called special relationship between the two nations. The White House, in an uncharacteristically blunt response, has refrained from directly commenting on the matter but has also made no effort to downplay the gravity of the situation. Press secretary statements have been carefully crafted, emphasizing ongoing dialogue while subtly indicating that the call did not go as expected. Meanwhile, sources within the State Department are reportedly fuming, with some insiders describing a deep sense of betrayal and frustration over Starmer's handling of the conversation. For many in Washington, this latest diplomatic misstep comes at a time when tensions are already running high on multiple fronts. With major geopolitical crises unfolding, economic concerns weighing heavily, and election season approaching, the last thing US leaders want is an unnecessary strain in transatlantic relations. Yet, here they are, faced with a scenario that has not only created a rift with their closest ally but also raised serious questions about Keir Starmer's leadership and decision-making. American lawmakers, particularly those in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, have not been shy in voicing their displeasure. Some are openly questioning whether Starmer's government is reliable, while others are calling for immediate reassurances that the UK remains committed to shared strategic interests. Prominent political figures have gone as far as to suggest that the UK's actions could lead to a re-evaluation of trade deals, military collaborations, and intelligence agreements. Such a dramatic shift in rhetoric signals just how serious the fallout from this call has become. Meanwhile, back in the UK, Starmer is facing a political firestorm of his own. Opposition parties and media outlets have seized upon the controversy, demanding transparency about what was said and why the call has caused such an uproar across the Atlantic. The British public, already divided on Starmer's leadership, is now watching closely as his government scrambles to contain the diplomatic fallout. The Prime Minister's attempts to reassure both domestic and international audiences have, so far, done little to quell the growing discontent. For Starmer, this could not have come at a worse time. Still working to solidify his leadership and strengthen his position on the global stage, he now finds himself embroiled in one of the most contentious diplomatic incidents of his tenure. The way he navigates this crisis will not only shape his political future but could also determine the trajectory of UK-US relations for years to come. Some analysts believe that this situation might be salvageable if both sides move quickly to de-escalate tensions. However, others argue that the damage has already been done and that trust, once broken, is not easily restored. With both Washington and London remaining tight-lipped about the specific details of the call, the lack of transparency only adds fuel to the fire, leaving the public to speculate about the true nature of the conversation and its implications. As the fallout continues to unfold, one thing remains certain: this is not just another diplomatic disagreement. The call from hell has exposed deep fractures in a historically strong alliance, and the repercussions are likely to be felt for a long time to come. Will Keir Starmer manage to mend the rift and restore confidence in his leadership? Or has this moment marked the beginning of a more strained, uncertain future for UK-US relations? Only time will tell, but for now, the world is watching closely as this geopolitical drama continues to escalate.